Hello my dear friends, you're in the middle of a summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first let's talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. During the previous few 3, 4, 5 days, the President of Ukraine Zelensky made lots of very important statements about the peaceful settlement of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Let's discuss these statements in details. First of all, and probably the most important, is that the President of Ukraine made a proposal. Ukraine has proposed to Russia a mutual halt to strikes on civilian targets in the Black Sea. The proposal was conveyed to Moscow through a third party, but Kiev has not yet received the response. Most likely, this proposal was conveyed to Moscow through either Turkey or the United States of America. During the same day, we received another statement made by the President of Ukraine. Putin will stop the war. We have a plan. Ukraine, together with its international partners, has developed a clear plan to end the fighting. To achieve this, the Ukrainian military must firmly hold the front, and the fight must be transferred to Russian territory. And the most important statement made by Zelensky is that, according to information we have, Ukraine submitted new proposal to the United States regarding the peace process. According to Zelensky, he also rejected the idea that Ukraine would cede the remaining territory of the Donbas region, which Putin seeks to seize, stating that security guarantees remain crucial for Kiev. So these are the statements and these are the positions, sometimes even different positions, of the President Zelensky regarding the peaceful process. And of course, due to the fact that the proposal was sent to the Russians, of course, we started waiting for a response. And this morning, the Russians made it clear that they are rejecting this idea and this proposal. We received at least 2 statements, or at least 2 messages sent by Russians. First of all, we have a report, we have statements made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Lavrov. Let's discuss them in details. He said that all goals of the special military operation would be achieved, the Ukrainians would be defeated. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov commented on the special military operation in an interview with Vesti. A halt to the conflict in Ukraine along the line of contact is ruled out. Russia will not stoop to Ukraine's method, but will make its own harsher. Russia will destroy everything that feeds the Ukrainian armed forces. So this is the response of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation on Kiev's proposal about the peaceful settlement of the conflict, and about the halt of strikes in the Black Sea. And later we received the report published by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. This response much shorter than the statements of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Minister of Defense of Russia just published this picture. And here we can see drones, most likely drones flying somewhere over the territory of Ukraine, in the airspace of Ukraine, and not even flying, but probably already attacking some objects on the territory of Ukraine. And they added just a simple text: in winter, you'll get a freeze. So what does it mean? Once again, Zelensky demands, the most important demand of Zelensky is that the line of combat contact must be freezed along the current situation, along the current line, along the front line. The Russians, with this message, are trying to tell Zelensky that he will get a freeze, but not a freeze of the line of combat contact, but a freeze of something else, which means that the Russians most likely will start the winter military campaign, including massive attacks using hundreds of drones, thousands of drones, and hundreds of missiles, especially on positions, on objects of energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue attacking each other with drones. The Ukrainians attacked the territory of Russia between the 13th and the 14th of August of 2026 using hundreds of drones, and this picture was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. The Ukrainians used around 370 drones to attack the territory of Russia, and the Russians stated that during the overnight fight they managed to intercept and to destroy 5 553 drones of the armed forces of Ukraine. But despite the fact that the Russians managed to destroy almost everything, some drones managed to hit targets on the territory of Russia. This morning we received just a picture from the territory of the city of St. Petersburg. The sources reported that here we can see the aftermath of the attack on the port of Ust-Luga last night, and telling the truth, when talking about these pictures, we can see that the damage is minimal. Maybe there is no damage at all. Another territory that was attacked by the Ukrainians is the city by the name of Yenakiyevo. So we're talking about the territory, about the city to the east or northeast of the city of Donetsk. And here we have a mall. So this is a mall. This is like something like a big mall for civilians, and this mall was attacked by drones during the night. And as you can see, as a result of this attack, the mall, this big shop, was completely wiped out, reduced to ruins. So this is the second target that was attacked by the armed forces of Ukraine and destroyed basically during the night between the 13th and the 14th of August of 2026. The Russians also attacked the territory of Ukraine, and the Minister of Defense of Ukraine this morning reported that the Russians used 112 drones, and the Ukrainians managed to bring down 90 drones of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And once again, the Ukrainians haven't published any details or any information regarding missiles that were launched by the Russians. And we have reports that the Russians were mainly attacking the Zhytomyr region. Yesterday in the evening, we received the report that the Russians used probably a dozen of Banderol missiles, cruise missiles over Zhytomyr. Lots of explosions were recorded, and we start receiving first videos. For example, we have a video where we can see black smoke over the city of Zhytomyr right after the Russians attacked the territory. So once again, we see, and this is the most important information, that the Russians intensified the use of missiles and drones through the western parts of Ukraine. So this is not the most western parts of Ukraine, but this is already the beginning of the western parts of Ukraine, probably the end of the central part of Ukraine. Probably since the beginning of this year, or even since the beginning of 2025, the Russians were mainly attacking the territories along the line of combat contact, probably through the northern, eastern, southeastern, and the southern parts of Ukraine. And we haven't received updates about attacks through the western parts of Ukraine. We're just not talking about massive attacks. But these days we start receiving more and more updates from the area of the cities like Zhytomyr, Korostyn, Rivne. So the Russians intensified their attacks through these territories, trying to wipe out and to destroy objects of logistics, objects of energy infrastructure, military infrastructure, warehouses, ammo depots, and so on. And this is a very important situation. As we discussed many videos ago, currently the Ukrainians have just one safe zone through the entire territory of Ukraine, and we're talking about the most western parts of Ukraine and the most central part of Ukraine. So this is the territory where the minimal number of explosions and attacks were recorded from the Russian side. But telling the truth, and due to the current situation along the front line, current situation in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, I believe that the days of this zone are numbered. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And first let's talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded. So this is the end of the 13th of August of 2026, and this is already the beginning of the 14th of August. The Russians improved their positions according to different sources through this dense network of the fortifications, and the Russians continue approaching the settlement of Yurkivka from the west and from the south. So this is a very important situation. The Russians are trying to improve their, first of all, artillery and FPV drone control over the NO8 road that goes from the city of Zaporizhzhia towards the Orekhov agglomeration. Furthermore, now let's move to the northern Zaporizhzhia or Ivanivka direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. This is the area where the Ukrainians launched their counteroffensive operation at the beginning of 2026. So these are the changes between the 12th and the 13th of August, and these are the changes between 13th and the 14th of August of 2026. We continue receiving updates and videos how Ukrainian soldiers raised flags through these villages, which means that the Ukrainians most likely indeed managed to improve their positions, but the question is whether the Ukrainians are going to move further. And telling the truth, I'm not sure that the Ukrainians are going to do this, because as you can see, the Ukrainians created a foothold, let's say, to the south and to the east of the river of Volchya, and as you can see, the distance between, let's say, between the river of Volchya and the current line of combat contact through the western flank, and the distance between the river of Volchya and the line of combat contact through the eastern flank is almost the same. So as you can see, the Ukrainians are not going to move further. They will try to save this distance as a safe distance in cases if everything goes wrong. The Ukrainians and the soldiers and the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine on this side of the river of Volchya would always have possibilities to retreat towards more reliable positions. So most likely, once again, this is another confirmation that this counteroffensive operation was more a media counteroffensive operation rather than a real counteroffensive operation with the purpose to achieve strategical or at least tactical goals. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Druzhkivka direction. Right before we started making this video, pro-Russian sources, more precisely the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians established complete control over the settlement of Novomykhailivka. We haven't managed to adjust the map, but we will adjust the map before the next video, and then we will discuss everything in more details, and we will adjust the map like this. So the Russians managed to improve their positions on the Ukraine side of the river of Kazennyi Torets. So this is the river of Kazennyi Torets, and this is probably already a third village on this side of the river, the village of Torets, Krasny Kut, Novomykhailivka, and we see that the Russians continue improving their positions, continue improving their foothold before the beginning of a major battle for the city of Druzhkivka, because if Russians indeed manage to dig in deeper and to establish strong control over the territory, then from these positions the Russians have possibilities to continue encirclement of the Ukrainians through the pockets of the villages around Zolotoy Kolodets, and from these positions the Russians have all chances to attack both the cities of Kramatorsk and Druzhkivka from behind, and most likely this is exactly what the Russians are trying to achieve and to develop right now. Meanwhile, the Russians continue attacking both the cities of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. During the previous 12 hours, additional bombs were deployed by Russians. Lots of explosions were recorded through different facilities and industrial zones of the cities of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. And according to information we have, a bridge was destroyed through the territory. And we have these pictures where we can see the bridge that was destroyed as a result of attack by Russians. The Russians are trying to cut the southeastern and the eastern parts of the city of Sloviansk and Sloviansk agglomeration from supply and support, which means that the Russians are getting ready and are preparing themselves before the beginning of the major battle for the last settlement on the Russia side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbas Canal. We are talking about the settlement of Mykolaivka. Now let's talk about the Kupiansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes were also recorded. This is the end of the 13th of August and this is the beginning of the 14th of August. The Russians improved their positions through the western parts of the city of Kupiansk, and we came to this conclusion based on the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking edge positions of Russians. So the Russians continue advancing, continue improving their positions through the city of Kupiansk, continue regrouping with the purpose then to start a major offensive operation, but this time towards the city of Kharkiv from the east. As for the northern directions, during the previous 12 hours, no changes were recorded. And that's it for the short video. The military summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.